Welcome to Ask Sean, where I explore all sorts of questions about life, relationships, and being human. I'm Sean Slevin, a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And if you have a question for me, you can submit that anonymously at asksean.org. So in one of the communities that I'm deeply connected with, we've recently experienced a pretty significant change, and one that has a fair bit of loss attached to it. And so I've been sitting with that, and we as a community have been processing that and being with that and our grief and confusion and other feelings and all the messiness of that. And I've been thinking about that, I've also been thinking about just other aspects of my life where there's uncertainty, other kinds of uncertainty, where things that I wish I could know or could know how are going to play out, or things I want answers to, things I don't understand about life, or and so I was sharing with a friend about this. We were kind of dialoguing about just some of these particular situations in our community and the community we're both part of, and things in our lives, where we all feel this, right? We feel the vulnerability of uncertainty, the vulnerability of that life is very fragile in all sorts of ways, not just in terms of that we could die, but that things can change unexpectedly, and not the way that we want, or the things that we want to change, that we have limited power to make them change, and so it's so tempting, and I think our culture, it's tempting to think that, well, the answer is how can I get that certainty? How can I get that certainty so I can feel comfortable, so that I don't have to feel vulnerable? And I just, though that is tempting, and we all make grasps for this, we all try to grab hold of that somehow. It doesn't seem like that ever really works. And the thing I've been thinking about is, like, if it actually did work, like, what would that really mean? We think we want certainty. We think we want, total predictability. But the image that I get is like, what's something that's like really highly predictable? Well, it's like a block of marble, right? Although even that, can, unexpected things can happen with eventually. It just takes a really long time. But it's like, to have total certainty, to have no change, right? Like, I think that's part of the thing I think about is, like change is not our enemy. I don't want to be encased in stone, Like, I don't like hurting. I don't like loss. Those things are hard, right? But I'm a living being, and I want to be alive. And being alive means change, means constant change. The human body is constantly like having cells die out and new cells being born to replace them. We shed our skin, our, hair grows and falls out, and more hair grows, and all these kinds of things, right? Like we are constantly changing. And when we stop changing, it means we're dead. Like biologically, and even then some changes still happen, but there's no longer life in the body. It's just only decay. So I don't know. I've just been thinking about this, that it's so vulnerable to be human, and yet so wonderful. Like it is good that we actually are alive. It's good that we're actually here. It seems to me that part of living well in any time in human history, not just our particular moment, but is grappling with that change is necessary. It's not our enemy. And it's still scary, and it's still stressful, right? Like, even good changes are stressful. But but it's necessary. It's a part of being alive. And so somehow we have to be in relationship with this change. We have to be in relationship with uncertainty, with that we don't know what the next moment will hold. We don't know what tomorrow will bring. And to not be paralyzed by that and not despair, but also not engage in fantasy to try to escape that, because that just takes us out of our life, right? Or, if we're trying to somehow know things we can't yet know, then we're not living right now, right? Like, we're trying to somehow have a certainty so that we won't have grief. Well, then we're cutting off living, and we're living right now and experiences of joy and goodness right now. So yeah, I don't know. These are just things I'm mulling over today. It's like, how can we live into these things, these realities more? How can we be in better relationship with uncertainty and the vulnerability of uncertainty, the vulnerability of how fragile everything is? And as we do that, can we become more open to that there's also a lot of beauty in the uncertainty? And kind of paradoxically, there's a lot of beauty, there's a lot of goodness in the fragility of all of us and our lives. And that's not in any way to minimize how painful things are when things go ways that we don't want, things go ways that hurt, when there's loss. But I don't know, there's a beauty in our fragileness too. When you think about a flower, right, that can be so delicate and yet is so beautiful, and that will be gone tomorrow. And yet, aren't we glad that it's here today? So I'm glad that I'm here today. I'm glad that you're here today. Even with all our frailties, even with our times of grief, even with how vulnerable it is to not know things we want to know, to not have the certainty that we think will save us, but in a lot of ways would really imprison us, would become our own private hell. I'm glad that we're here today and that we're alive and that we're living and that we're changing, even though it's hard in a lot of ways, but it's also beautiful. So, until next time, peace be with you.